Hello, I'm Chloe Rigby, editor of InternetRetailing.net, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Converting Inbound Intent, Aligning Content with Experience and with Commerce. Can I just ask that if anybody has not got their mute button on, that should have, that they do that now. Over the next hour, we'll be hearing from Paul Fenimore, Digital Transformation Consultant at Sitecore, on creating shopping experiences that earn trust and build relationships with customers. Paul is an expert in digital marketing and transformation thanks to extensive practical experience coupled with the rigor of applied academic research. Paul holds a master's degree with distinction in digital marketing from Oxford Brookes University and is also an associate postgraduate MSc lecturer at Oxford Brookes University Business School. At the end of today's webinar, we'll move into a Q&A session. So ahead of that, let me explain how to ask any questions that you may have. On the control panel on your screen, you'll see a chat box. Write your question in that box and press send. We'll aim to get to as many questions as we can today. The session's recorded, so I'd remind you that after the webinar finishes, we will be sending out an email with the link so you can watch it again whenever it's convenient for you. So, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Paul Fenimore, Digital Transformation Consultant at Sitecore. Paul, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you very much indeed, Chloe, and good morning and good afternoon and good evening to all our listeners this afternoon or today, because I think we've got 60 or 70 different people actually registering for this, and you're from all different corners of the world. So welcome, and thank you for attending. So this webinar should last around 45 minutes. Maybe I'll speak a bit more quickly so we can get through it more soon as I give you opportunity to ask my questions at the end, should that be the case. And as Chloe's already indicated, the title of this this particular webinar is Converting Inbound Intent. So it's not necessarily about outbound marketing, it's about inbound marketing and what you do when you are able to draw people to your digital properties, your mobile, your social, your websites, your e-commerce sites, etc. And the challenge really that in terms of this title, it's very much about aligning content with experience and with commerce and with the customer. So it's not just about commerce, it's not just about the catalogue, it's coming at it, as you might imagine, from the needs of the consumer. And that's what you would hope to expect to see today, but that's not always the case, and that's not what we find. So that's me anyway. So you've got a picture of me there looking very toothy, actually, I think, probably more than anything else. But Chloe's done a very complimentary introduction of me already, so I'll skip that one. So let's get straight into this. So today we've got this this challenge, because this is all about e-commerce we're talking about here primarily. And what we're finding is that when organizations move into this e-commerce world, unless you're already a pure play e-commerce organization, then you probably started correctly on the right foot. But quite often they're starting from a situation where you've got a lot of content, which is your product content, and you've got a lot of data on that. You've got your PIM catalog and so on and so forth. And then you've got your e-commerce engine, which is doing that transactional information with the consumer. And then you've got the data on the consumer itself. And more often than not, we're finding in organizations that these three different sets of very important data are not matched and married. They're not correlated with each other. And when that happens, then that gives rise to a series of challenges. Quite often, we've got this concept of broadcasting information, pushing the product out rather than actually correlating the needs of the product to a particular individual's consumer's preferences. And that's what we mean by an inside out rather than an outside in point of view. And you've probably heard that strategy before, that point of view before, and it's really important to be able to get that right. And I have to say that's probably the premise behind this whole presentation today, to be able to look at it from the customer's perspective, as you would hope. But of course, we say that and we all know that, but many organizations, in my experience, are yet to get to that point. And to get to that point, what we need to be able to do is to be able to get to know our customers again and to be able to personalize content, not just upon their in-session transactions, but what they've done historically even. Maybe they do get hysterical when they're not getting the information they need, but also to look at what they're doing in session, but trying to also pick up on nuances about consumers based upon not only their demographic and transactional profile, but their psychographic profile as well, their preferences and parameters, them as a person. And if you think about it, digital in many ways is creating many opportunities for us to be able to reach out to new audiences, to get to new markets sooner rather than later, and to do it really cost effectively. And it's great because it knows no global boundaries other than the politics that may be involved in that. But the issue is that as people increasingly transact with you via digital channels, the less you get to know about them. And that's going backwards, not going forward. So what we need to do is get back to how we used to be when somebody walks into a shop. We could see their persona, their profile. We could pick up all the nuances, where they lived, what they looked like. You can read so much into body language and a person's persona just by them walking in through the door. All those things we take for granted. And when we start to transact with people digitally, we lose that. That really contextual information about that particular individual or groups of individual. And we need to get back to that. And that's what this presentation really is about. That's the premise behind it. So the other thing is, because these things aren't joined up, we've got the people making inquiries, we've got consumers then asking for more information. They're going through this journey. They might place an order. They get the order that gets delivered. And quite often we've got these disjointed systems within organizations, these silos of systems that don't deliver that omni-channel shopping experience, and that leads to frustration to the consumer. I mean, we have got organizations out there doing this already, and I'm going to give you a great case study later on today, so do please hang in until that, because it's really worth looking at as to an organization who's made the art of the possible a reality, really possible. And of course, we know that the cart is not the end state. You know, somebody's bought something, they've done that transaction, and you rub your hands with relief because you got an order come in, but actually we all know we're missing out on an opportunity there because we haven't got that ongoing digital relationship that we try to get with that consumer based upon their demographic and personal psychographic profile. What we want to do is to be able to maintain that ongoing digital conversations with those consumers based upon their preferences, to be able to retain upsell, cross-sell, and increase customer lifetime value. What we also need to be able to do is to be able to do all of this without having to build what Amazon might have built, which cost billions of pounds to do. In fact, it's technically feasible and commercially viable to be able to do this. And without, I'll give a plug to Sitecore, why not? That's what Sitecore does. So here's the opportunity. What we need to do is to make sure that the customer expectations, we need to know what customer expectations are, let alone their experience. And we need to make sure that their expectations are met and the experience are measured and delivered. And it's at the heart of that e-commerce transactional relationship. And to make sure that it happens throughout that whole cycle, doesn't just occur at the beginning or the end, it's increasing customer lifetime value. And I'm pretty sure you know all of this, so I'm going to be getting into the how fairly shortly, I promise you, but this is just by way of context setting. And it's really about creating value. So I think it's becoming increasingly difficult, as I'm sure you are aware, to be able to differentiate your product and your brand. Customers have so much choice now over the internet that actually it's not so much the product that's so important, it's what surrounds that product. It's about quality, service, convenience, and value. It's about that augmented capability. It's about enabling trust and confidence and having that rapport with people whereby they can know that when they get what they want from you, it is what they are intending to purchase, and they will get a good service should something go wrong. So that final transaction isn't final transaction. It's about that whole augmented and extended relationship that you need to be able to differentiate and deliver to your clients. Otherwise, somebody else will. That's why you get these new digital disruptors coming into market and stealing market share from traditional industries who are not doing that. So there tends to be, there tends to be a focus on this stock keeping unit, SKUs. I try not to use TLAs, three-letter acronyms too much, but I'm sure, given your titles, you know what that is. And clearly, there's always this emphasis, isn't there, on our product. This is what we're proud about, and we push that product out there, and we have a catalogue and product information management systems to be able to manage that. But what we really need to be able to do is to focus much more on the who. So what is it they're wanting? What's their circumstances? What's the context and why they want to buy that product, and what they're going to be using it for, to what effect and when and how? Have they had one before that's failed? It's all that information we need to be able to pick up on this individual, and that becomes much more important than the product. It's about correlating that the product to all those different parameters that I've just mentioned. And so one of the ways that we're starting to do this is matching the who with the skew, if you want to call it that. So we need to be able to then get together this information, these data silos, and put it into one system, which again is something that Sitecore can do. So we've got this product information, and then we've got this connected customer information. And what we're able to do with digital systems today is to be able to harvest all the information and insight concerning a consumer, their historical behavior, their location, maybe some demographic profile information. If they've logged in via Facebook, we can pick up on that data as well, of course, which gives us that insight to be able to give us the context, to be able to perhaps correlate the product to that individual. Perhaps that individual is looking at an anorak, but we know that from information that we've picked up from Facebook or other sources, or information that perhaps she's given us, that she is a hiker, and she's an extreme hiker. So she wants a particular product that serves that particular environment, and not just any old anorak or coat in that respect. I don't expect really to explain this to you at the moment, at this point in time, but the thing is, what we're able to do nowadays is to personalize and match and marry this data. So we can say, if this person's particularly interested in hiking, and she's of this age and this demographic and this size, and that's her sport, then show her a product which is based upon those criteria. And that's what this is. This is a rules-based engine that says, if she's interested in this, then show them that. That's what that does. And it's very easy to do, actually. It's much easier to do, to personalize content, than it was some time ago. And here's a great example of one organization who's doing this. They're talking to customers, not about the product anymore. It's about the use of the product, as it always has been, hasn't it? But we've kind of lost sight of that, or it's been difficult to do through digital channels, and now we can do it. So if you look at Toshiba, if you think about the whole range of different products they've got, there are different thousands of products. So if somebody went into their catalog and rummaged around that catalog for 2 or 3 hours to find what they want, they would have a very bad experience. They're not finding what they need in terms of their intent and the application of that product. So what they've done, and this is not a difficult thing to do, but nevertheless it needs to be done, is to talking to people based upon their intent, how they want to use that product and to what extent, what's their circumstances, and therefore take them down the journey which correlates to their circumstances. It's the right context, in other words. So it could be, if this is a business, and we know that they're perhaps a company, and are they expanding? Do they need more technology? Are they a startup? Are they price sensitive and want just 1 or 2 pieces of equipment to be able to get them going? Or actually, are they moving office? And if so, if it's only one of these 3 or all of these 3 to some extent, what they're able to do is to augment just their traditional products, whether it's cables or PCs or laptops or whatever it may be, is to actually say, these are the things that we can do over and above that core product to help you on that journey, to help you make the decision to buy not only the core product, but the other products and services and support and information you need to help you expand as an organization. Because you might be thinking that you need to be on a network. That's what you're expanding. If you're moving office, you might want to think about how you can actually connect these new systems together in a very simple way. I'm sure you get the picture. So it's not just about the product, it's about serving customers according to their circumstances. Here's another example, and this is really context marketing in situ. So here's an organization that sells high fashion products, which are primarily office furnishings, not office furnishings, furnishings. So instead of actually just showing them catalogs, the good old online catalog of all their different products, what they've done is use social media particularly well to get the consumers to post their products in situ on Instagram, as an example. So this home fashion group are able to encourage their consumers to, once they've purchased the product, and we can see here a situation of a sofa, to actually, rather than actually see that sofa in a sterile showroom somewhere, which is invariably the situation, or just out of context, just a picture of the sofa. What they've got is their consumers to show the lamps or whatever the product may be in the context of their home. So that just helps people with the trust and the decision-making process, and to make them realize that, hey, people have bought this and actually this is how it looks in their room or in somebody else's room. And by the way, augmented reality, as you know now, is taking a big step, because what you're able to do in many instances when you buy paint or products from IKEA is you can take a picture of your room and then take a picture and download then that particular piece of furniture, maybe it's a bookcase, and you can physically see what it looks like in situ in your room. So this is not about product, this is about context, isn't it? It's correlating the two. And that's a great example of companies doing this. And if you're not doing it, then I would urge you to do this. So this will be nothing new to you, I sincerely hope. So forgive me showing it to you, but there is a point to this really, is that we do need to remember that what we're trying to do here is to serve up contextual content throughout this customer journey. So it's right from awareness and consideration through to purchase and then repurchase, and having these ongoing digital multi-channel conversations, or omni-channel conversations with the consumer, and getting them to publish out the content and the success of what they're doing as well to other consumers, because word of mouth is increasingly important. They don't necessarily listen to the bold claims of brands anymore. They listen to reference sites or referral sites or what other consumers have said on Instagram about the product and such and so on and so forth. So it's always well worth remembering these different phases, and to be able to do this context relevancy mapping of content to consumers as to where they are on this journey. And easier said than done, but eminently doable. And taking this a step further, what we're trying to do is to bring this structured data together with the unstructured content, which intends to be the social content or the psychographic information we picked up about a consumer, location, gender, income, that kind of information, sports, areas of interest, history of purchase, areas of satisfaction and dissatisfaction, and bring all these things together so you can then correlate and match and marry the product with the unstructured data with the consumer. So it's not just about the product, as I said earlier on with the examples, it's very much about the consumer. So that's the way to do it, and we've seen people to do it. But that's not to say that your product's not important. So this slide is just reminding ourselves that you've really got to have this great structured product data and variations of these products based upon the price range and all the different categories that classify your different products. And it has to be presented in a way that people can relate to it, enables them to be able to make sure they get the right size or the right context of the product according to their own references. So yeah, product size and color is really, really important. That needs to be done critically well, and it helps with that decision-making process eminently and will increase conversions. But then, of course, this is unstructured data, which is then making sure that, having understood a little bit more about them based upon perhaps their in-session behavior and what they're looking at, is to show them content which is really compelling to get them to convert. Obviously, context, videos, references, manuals, social media reviews, all the things that we need to do to be able to move them down that journey to be able to buy and rebuy. So it all can be done. So then it's search. So personalized search is really cool as well. So people coming in from different search engines with different search terms is to take them directly to that content which correlates specifically to the things that they're looking for. So these facets, drilling down about their behavior and taking them immediately on that journey based upon their implied behavior or expressed behavior, explicit behavior. If you know where they're looking for something which is very specific, then show that to them immediately rather than them having to navigate through a whole catalogue to get to the point to where they want to get to. So this is what people are doing, and it's all about data. So what we're able to do, particularly within Sitecore, is that we're able to, we have something called a profile card. So you can't talk to people, you can't know people unless you're picking up this data. And so this profile card at the top here, if you can see it, is a timeline across any particular timeline. And you can scroll backwards and forwards across days, weeks, months, hours, years, if you wish to do so, about Jane. And these different bars at the top show degrees of interaction and session and duration of session that Jane would have had at a particular time on your digital properties. But more importantly, these yellow bars at the top show the value that this person is generating and her propensity to buy. Has she downloaded a white paper? Has she filled out a callback form? Has she filled out a finance calculator if she's buying a car? All these things show propensity and have a value and show the intent in terms of her ability or willingness in her decision-making stage to convert to make a purchase or a repurchase. But not only that, what we're able to do is obviously not only pick up on the transactional data, and this is where you need to be able to integrate your digital properties and your databases with your digital systems that you get with things like Sitecore with your CRM system. Otherwise, you're missing out on all of that data. So it's about matching and marrying that data together, which is eminently doable again. And here's a situation, and I was talking to an insurance company about this yesterday. It's about knowing Jane, knowing where she is, but understanding her. That maybe this particular insurance company provides not only insurance for cars. Excuse my naive icons here, but quite often companies do use these to illustrate the kind of characteristics and profile of a consumer. That actually we know that Jane, somehow we picked up on the fact that we know what her hobbies are, that she's into horse riding. Chances are, therefore, maybe she's got a horse box, and we can sell her not only car insurance but also horse box insurance as well, and stuff like that. But also, more importantly, what we're able to do is to show her propensity and the value and where she is in that journey to the organization and to her, rather than just visits and volumes of visits. So what we need to do is to be able to align the content with commerce. So I'm going to give you a quick case study here, and this is a company called Danone Nutritia. And incidentally, they were one of the very few companies worldwide that came out of the last recession stronger than they did than when they went into it. And they're a multi-billion-pound organization. And the CEO decided to actually empower their employees to say, right, you need to get on and do this, and I don't want to hold you back. I want you to have the freedom to come up with some really great ideas to be able to do everything I've just said, all the things I've just said, and bring it to life. So I'm empowering you, employees, to get on and do this. I trust you to make it happen, provided you can show that there's going to be some good outcomes and there's probably going to be a positive ROI. But also what I want you to do is to make sure you're consistent with our brand image. Whereas it used to be the other way around, organizations were very free about what their employees said about their brand, but very tight about what the employees could do. This company turned this upside down. And they came up with this. So this is one of their particular product lines. Obviously, they make nutritional products, almost medical products that have to be right. And the particular product line they decided to focus on, bringing to bear all the things I've just mentioned earlier, is baby formula milk powder, baby powder basically, which is a really important product because it has to be right. It has to be the right product according to the right condition of a child, according to its age, etc. So this is what they did. This is all about augmenting a core simple product, baby milk powder, with customer service and experiences. So when somebody comes onto the site, and this is written in Dutch, because this is where they first, I think it is Dutch, yeah, that's Dutch. They first launched it in the Netherlands. And what a mother-to-be can do is to go onto the site and say how many weeks pregnant she is. And at that particular point in time, it would say, if you're 24 weeks pregnant, this is nutrition perhaps you ought to be thinking about. This is the exercise that you might be wanting to do. And actually, this is probably what your baby looks like in the womb. There's pictures of that as well. So that's pre-birth. And then the other segment they go after is people who have perhaps just had a toddler. So they've already got a toddler. How old is that toddler? And it may be a number of weeks old. And then what the system will do is to say, hey, mum, you've got this baby now. Congratulations. It's 3 weeks old. These are the things that you might want to consider in terms of a feeding regime. This is the support group you can get. This is the things you need to do. This is what you can expect. So to cut a long story short, what they're doing here is taking quite a simple basic product and augmenting this product with supporting, educating, informing, and even entertaining the consumer. And it's marvelous because even before the mother needs the product because she hasn't had the baby yet, this company's already earned customer advocacy and loyalty. Already earned that. So when she needs baby formula powder, guess who she goes to buy it? Their turnover has gone up by 200%. The customer retention rate's gone up by 150%, purely because of this. So just bringing this to life. So this is the profile card of this consumer here. So we've picked up data on how that she's got a baby which is 6 months old. So therefore, have ongoing digital conversations with her based upon the baby of that profile. Also, we've got health information here. So this is sensitive information. So it has to be compliant to GDPR. There's no two ways about that. It's very secure. It's based upon trust and in compliance with the law as well. So all that security issues do apply as if you were a financial institution or a health services provider. So they have to be mindful of that and manage that. But what they're able to do is to say, hey, this child has got a milk allergy. So what we want to do is to make sure that she gets information about getting the right nutrition to a baby that's 6 months old, and what the feed schedule should be, and what kind of formula they need if they've got a milk allergy. And then we can see campaigns that they're related to and converted to and communicate. So it's all very well having that data, you've got to be able to use it. So what we're able to do is to say, right, if this is your profile, and these are your interactions, and this is the value you've been generating, then let's talk to you based upon your demographic and psychographic profile. GDPR compliant, absolutely, but can be done. And of course, it's cross-channel. So one would hope that everybody can do this nowadays, so you've got the same experience across all these different devices. Also, they have a mobile app. And what they realized when they did some research that mothers who've just had a child or just about to have a child tended to actually use social media between sort of 6:30 and 7:30 in the morning. And what they were doing was asking their cohorts about issues and concerns and worries they had about their child. Perhaps it's got colic. What do I do about it? Never had a baby before. I'm in a panic. And what they're able to do is to speak to their other cohorts in Benelux about, hey, this is my baby. It's got this problem. I'm not too sure it's this old. Can you help me? Can you support me? And 23% of women in Benelux, because this is where it's been launched, has downloaded this application, but not only downloading it, they're using it all of the time. And if you compare that with all the other apps out there, that is a phenomenal statistic. Most apps, once they've been downloaded, 70% of apps, once they've been downloaded, never get used or only get used once ever again after it's been downloaded after 3 months. Most apps don't get used. Most people only use about 3 or 4 apps most of the time anyway. So that just shows how this omni-channel consistent behavior and consistent messaging and communication across these channels really can work. So again, this is coming back to the point about it's not about transactions, it's about the who, not the skew. And again, this is omni-channel as well. So this is taking the digital world to the physical world. So this lady here, she can tap in her details here, and this vending machine outside normal shopping hours, we recognize that this baby's maybe got a lactose intolerant problem, and we dispense the right product to this baby at this time. So this is absolutely outstanding. This is differentiating, and it's augmented. I beg your pardon. It's completely omni-channel, so people can sign up for this service at marketing events and join, and that's great. They also have this interaction. This is a magic mirror, which is a little bit scary, but the lady can go in, have a look at this, and explain to the mirror how many months pregnant she is, and she can get a visual image of what her child might look like. I don't know. I always think twice about that. I think maybe they seem to love it, but I think I might be a bit scared. I stood in front of that mirror and I had a big surprise because it said to me I was 3 months pregnant. Baby's due tomorrow, by the way. Hopefully you're laughing at the other end here. But that's not quite true, of course. Also, point of sale. So what they're able to do is to actually look at the purchasing trends of particular individuals or segments of individuals. And if the purchasing behavior is dropping off, what they're able to do is to say this person hasn't actually purchased a product for the last 2 weeks and is not conforming to their normal purchasing patterns. So send them an email with a discount voucher to get that loyalty back. Obviously, multi-responsive web, mobile app, and this omni-channel experience. So there we are. So this post-purchase phase goes on, doesn't it? And that's what they've been able to do by augmenting a core product with something well over and above what that core product is about. It's about the application of the product. So it's about this rich content intertwined with the product to give customer information, contextual experiences, and so on and so forth. But also it's using marketing automation, which again you get within Sitecore, is that perhaps if they haven't been purchasing a product for a particular time, or perhaps if they meet this particular profile, what we're able to do is to communicate with them with their current state, with their current condition, and then some actions to say, if you've bought this particular refrigerator, maybe you might, this is not Danone Nutrition, by the way, this is another example, maybe you might need a new filter for this refrigerator if you've got a problem. Or maybe if you've bought this refrigerator and you're looking for it to go into a small space, maybe this refrigerator is a better deal. Or you looked at this refrigerator 2 weeks ago and you didn't buy it, you dropped out with your inquiry form, hey, it's on discount now, maybe you're interested. So this ongoing digital conversation using automated engagement plans, marketing automation, is a great way of increasing conversions to people that have been to your site. I was also asked to talk about testing. Slightly going off the tangent here, but I was asked to do it, and I'll do it anyway, because actually what we need to be able to do is, with your product information, is to be able to test different variations of the product on your digital properties. You probably can't see this, but there's a before and after test here with just different size text and a different image at the back here. Now, the whole premise behind this particular slide here now is that when you create content or you've got existing content, you could easily go into the website in page editing and make some slight modifications between one version of it and another version of it. You can modify even in text, components, call to actions, components, not just the whole page, but even things like forms, and you can do multivariate testing as well. And you can see the before and after and have multi-variations of this. You can decide how long you want that test to run for. You can choose what you think whether it's going to improve. A bit of a gamification here. You can see to make a decision whether you think your second example is going to go up or down, and the system will automatically, after a given period of time, depending on how long you want to run the test for, will say, hey, this particular version is creating more conversions, it's taking them to the next best action, or they are filling out the form, or they are calling up somebody, or they are placing an order, whatever the goal may be. These are aligned to goals. And it will automatically then use the best performing variation and put that on to the site, so all visitors get exposure to that particular version. Whereas before, when you're testing it, you can say perhaps only 50% of my visitors will be exposed to this particular test. Or you can actually adjust it manually. You can look at all the tests you're running at any particular time. So why would you want to do that? Well, believe you me, as you probably know, doing very simple things, it's all to do with imagery and subliminal thinking that people have. It works. You will get, without a doubt, all the research says it, from Gartner, Aberdeen Group, the academic research, etc., says you will get at least a 6% increase in conversions in the world of e-commerce by doing simple A/B testing. And anybody can do it. It's just like changing something in a PowerPoint or Word document. This is not, you don't need legions of staff to do this. You don't need to know about HTML programming. And for God's sakes, you don't need a marketing agency to do it for you. You can do it yourself. And actually, every time you maybe create some new content, you might say, I'm going to do 2 variations of this piece of content or 3 variations of it and see how it pans out. So you can test everything. Why wouldn't you do that? So that's that. So just coming to the last slide here, and I think we're nearly done here, Chloe. So I'm a little bit ahead of time, which is good for everybody, I would have thought. So coming back to this, it's pre-purchase, just summing up, these different phases, applying everything I've just said, augmenting the core product with all these things that actually influence the buying decision, because people aren't buying the product, they're buying the things that wrap around it and the use of that product. And then it's nurturing. It's having ongoing digital conversation based upon a demographic and psychographic profile, and then to be able to upsell, cross-sell, and increase customer lifetime value. So Chloe, here's some information that you can go to. So go to this website here. This is our Sitecore Business Optimization Services, of which I'm part of. There's an awful lot of nice, simple brochures, e-books you can read and download to get to that. But it's not like reading War and Peace. They're quite easily digestible and sum up a lot of what I've said and more, and also helping you put the business case together for doing personalization and testing and engagement automation. There's an ROI to be had, and we have a business calculator that can do that. If you want me to help you with that, that offer is out there. So Chloe, do we have any questions?
Hi, that was great. So first of all, thanks very much, Paul, for a really in-depth presentation there. We have a few questions in already. If anybody has a question that they still want to ask, however, just a quick reminder to anyone else on how to ask it. On the control panel on your screen, you can see a chat box. If you write your question there and press send, we'll aim to get to as many questions as we can today. So first of all, there's a question here on the case study. Looks great. It looks really put together, well organized, but what are the organizational structures, resources, skills that are required to make this sort of operation happen?
Yeah, so, I mean, without that, without answering that question, it's never going to happen anyway. So that's a good starting point, and it is a brilliant question. I know everybody says, thank you for your question. It's a brilliant question. I don't mean to be facetious, but it is really a genuinely important question. So with the Danone case study example that I gave you, they needed to make sure that they had an end game in plan, that they knew that, you know, they needed to really understand who their target market audiences are and where they could add value along the lines I've just mentioned over and above that to the audience. So it was about mapping segments and personas and mapping out customer journeys, and then having really compelling content that related to those customer journeys to get those conversion points and deciding where they're going to personalize. But before you can get that, you've got to get executive buy-in. You know, you've got to show the business case. That's why I put this here. You know, what's the ROI for doing it? And there is an ROI. If you do personalization, you get up to 20% increase in conversions. I've seen companies who are pure play online business get 70% increase in conversion through personalization. If you've got the business case there, then you'll get buy-in from your CFO and your CEO if you're not one already. That's one thing. The other thing is skills and resources. So if you're going to do this, who's responsible for looking at the data? Who's responsible for setting up these personalization rules and looking at the analytics and optimizing it? And who's responsible for measuring the outcomes and producing the reports and testing? So it's about ownership and assigning roles and responsibilities and upskilling. Most people have got the staff in place already. It's just a matter of giving them more interesting jobs like that to do. But without doing it, it's not going to happen. So brilliant question. Thank you.
Indeed. Thanks, Paul. That's great. We've got another question here about testing. How easy is it to do? You touched on it a little bit in the presentation, but can you tell us a little bit more about what's the benefit and the research that shows if it works, and possibly also how do I decide what kind of testing is more appropriate for my particular instance?
Yes, so there's quite a few questions there. Well, and there's no two ways about it. And if you go into our website and look for the business case for doing this sort of stuff, there is empirical research, unbiased research that shows if you do this testing, you will get these outcomes. There's no two ways about it. We know that that works. So the business case there, that's undisputable. In terms of how easy it is to do, I think I've explained that really in a way, but it's worth repeating. It's simply going into your website and saying this particular page or this particular component, maybe it's just this picture here on here, for instance, that could be a web page, or maybe just slightly changing the text. It's as simple as going into a PowerPoint and changing it. That's all it is. And then you create two versions and decide how do you want to run those versions for. Also, the system will tell you how long you need to run it for before you can actually get meaningful results, because there's no point just running it for a day, because you may not get enough visitors to warrant to know which particular test or version is giving the best conversions or triggering goals. So the system will say, based upon the volumes of visitors that you're getting, you need to run this test for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or even 6 months in some cases. So it gives you that information to know how you should run the test for. And then you get reports. So there's analytics that come out of the box to say, these are the goals that are being triggered as a consequence of you running these tests, and these tests are actually performing better than others. So that's cool. But also, where should you test? To answer your last question that you raised today, Chloe, on behalf of one of the listeners here today, is if you've got a path analyzer, if you're looking at where the bounce rates are, go to those hot points. Try and work out why people are bouncing, and go to your Google Analytics and think about how you can improve bounce rate by 2 or 3%, because that could equate to a lot of money. So, key places in the customer journey where people are not following through or ducking out of your digital properties for whatever reason. Simples, really. There's no more to it than that.
That sounds very straightforward. That's great. So, final question, possibly here today, is I'm a B2B company rather than B2C. Are the challenges involved in this different for B2B rather than B2C?
Well, B2B do less e-commerce, don't they? The transactions quite often in the B2B market is that the final transaction quite often is a discussion between two people. If you're in professional services and you're signing up for a mortgage, or if you're buying industrial equipment, quite often, that you need consultancy and direction from an individual who may be a specialist technician to be able to help you make that final decision. So doing all of that stuff at that particular macro conversion point, that end conversion point, quite often digital doesn't have a major role in that place, in that stage of the conversion, because that's not an e-commerce transaction. But everything else I've just said does apply, because digital does have a role. Most journeys start online somewhere, and you want to be able to nurture those customers to a point where they do speak to a technician or a financial advisor or a call center operative to get the information that they need. So everything here does apply to the B2B space. And the last reason why it still applies to the B2B space is because at the end of the day, it's not about B2B, it's not about B2C, it's about business to human. It's about human to business. We're dealing with individuals who have just got the same concerns, who don't sleep at night, who've got things they need to do in their business. They've got targets to meet. They've got problems to solve. They want their life to be made easier. They want to be more successful in their job. It's about business to human, or human to business. So the same principles apply, because we're still talking about people, not a faceless business. Honestly, really important to hang on to that point.
That's great. Well, Paul, that ends our question session for today. So before I end the webinar, I'd like to thank everybody for listening to the webcast today and for asking those questions. Particularly, I'd like to thank you, Paul. You've been an excellent speaker today. Paul Fenimore, Digital Transformation Consultant at Sitecore. Thanks very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
We will follow up by email with a link to the on-demand webinar, which you can listen again to at your convenience. So thank you all once again for taking part in this webcast, and goodbye.